Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series on partition of India in print media and cinema. We are talking about displaced people and abandoned homes. So, in this context, we are going to talk more about trains, train journeys. So, trains have a momentous or trains are quintessential. They could be seen as the synecdoche of the violence that partition entailed. When we think, whenever we have a popular imagination or we think of partition as a popular text, the partition as a popular text can be understood not without imagining the trains, the overcrowded trains, the pictures, the overly accessed and overly kind of focused, the overly focused image of the train. This is something that always comes within the purview of discussion whenever we are talking of partition. Train has been, has long since, and it has always been a prominent motif in Indian partition stories, Indian partition studies, because train is mobile. It carried the people across the border, and in many cases it failed to carry them across the border. Many people died in the train, and which led to further cases of murder and incendiary. So, in the context of partition, one could link the symbol of train with time. So, this is to say that it had become cumbersome, or it was just like the trains, the time would not move. The time had become stagnant at during the partition. At the time of partition, a train a train, just like time, is supposed to move. It is supposed to transport goods and people, rather people and goods from one point to the other. But the stagnation, because of the set off between different communities, had led to moving nowhere. People were not able to reach their destination. So, it was a kind of a vicious circle of hatred, where the train was not leading to anywhere, although it was moving. Sometimes it was stopping dead on the tracks, and this is something that Ghatak has very successfully shown in Komul Gandhar. Sometimes it would reach with laden with dead bodies and parts of human bodies. And so, we see that time and the train, in a way, had become, they can be seen as metaphors of one another, and they can be seen as metaphors of many incomplete stories, many stories that never saw maturation, that did not realize a fruitful end. Trains, as artworks depict, many trains would mean separation of lovers. So, there would be no reunion it would mean a separation of neighbors, of friends that one would never see. So, it was taking a person to a place of no return, from a place from which one could never come back. We see that the train is associated with the picture of uncountable refugees who were uprooted from their origins and forced to move to a new land and start life from the scratch. When religious separation became a possibility in 1947, and even before that, the reality was somewhere it had dawned in the horizons for the politically aware classes from different communities and different regions, and that is when most individuals concluded that moving over to a safer zone, to a geographical location where their communal majority would be staying, was the only way to stay alive and to stay protected, save their property and honor. So, the journey was not without dangers, like I already said. Assaulting hordes from rival communities would swoop in on the fleeing masses, and these people would generally travel by so the people would generally travel, they would use different means for traveling, such as rails, trucks, bullock carts, or for the poorest lot it could be on foot. The bulk of migrants are thought to have travelled by train. However, the bulk that comprise a range, a social range between the upper middle classes and the lower middle classes, and mostly the middle class and as well as the poorer sections, thought that the train was the main means of transit. It was because of its accessibility and its inexpensive cost, something that everyone could afford. So, due to its reasonable cost that people could afford and its accessibility, train would be the chief means of transit or transport for people. So, there were rife cases of frequent attacks from opposing communities, and so the most prominent images of partition violence are inscribed in the train, in the rail bogies, and we also remember the burnt bogies, the bogies that were burnt by the rioters. These are some of the popular images that are left, that we have in our minds about partition. So, on its rails, members from different communities committed genocide against the rival community members. The first of such incidents is recorded to have occurred on July 22nd, 1947. Although the first actual train sabotage occurred on 9th of August 1947, when a Pakistan special train was carrying the Pakistani government employees and their families from Delhi to Karachi, and it was derailed about a quarter of a mile outside of the princely state of Patiala by mines that were planted on the tracks. So, in Lahore, Muslims avenged this incident very swiftly, and they attacked and stabbed the passengers in trains that were travelling to eastern Punjab, and they also derailed and the cases of derailing trains, the cases of derailments became prevalent, more frequent. Swarna Iyer, in her work August Anarchy, the Partition Massacres in Punjab 1947, has written extensively on these trains of death. So, in her essay August Anarchy, the Partition Massacres in Punjab 1947, Swarna Iyer extensively writes on these train deaths, cases of train deaths, and mishaps happening in and centering the train, the violence that are aroused, the violence that are spread in the society from the deaths happening, or the murders happening inside the trains. So, we also see a lot of these ambushes, this violence being depicted in partition literature, both in longer works as well as in short stories. So, Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan is full of violence scenes on the deathly wheels, and it is also the story of the lover and the beloved, how the train, an entire train, is saved by the male protagonist because his lover, his beloved is inside the train, and he wants the train to reach its destination. The novel Freedom at Midnight by Larry Collins and Dominique Lapierre reproduces tales of train massacre survivors which parallel the popular accounts of violence. So, a mob severs the train from the engine according to a witness, and the passengers are thrown onto the platform. They are slaughtered by the perpetrators, who are a majority in that given region. So, those that attempt to flee are hunted down and killed. In many cases they are thrown into wells, and so 100 persons out of in the specific case of Freedom at Midnight, which in fact simulates the real instances, only 100 persons out of 2000 are able to board the train and make it to their destination alive. So, in Sindh, such attacks would occur during, before and after partition. Such attacks would occur on a sporadic basis, on and often. September 1947, non-Sindhi Muslim refugees, most likely they were muhajirs or refugees. So, they were muhajirs, and they attacked and plundered a train that transported Hindus from Punjab, and these Hindus were travelling through Nawab Shah. The Grand Trunk Express, also known as the Great Indian Peninsula Express, was assaulted by rioters, after the partition in September 1947. So, Aziz Ahmad's Urdu story Kali Raat or Black Night depicts the tragic journey of a Muslim family that is travelling by this train. So, the story develops against the backdrop of this real incident on Grand Trunk Express, and it depicts the journey of a Muslim family travelling by this train from Delhi to Hyderabad, and how the passengers get assaulted. So, the personified train in Kishan Chandra's Urdu fiction Peshawar Express is something we always discuss when we talk about trains in the context of partition. So, it narrates, the train is the narrator here, and it tells us about the horrendous account of the train's corpse laden voyage, and the killings that happened at different stops, such as in Taxila, in Rawalpindi and in Wazirabad. The train is traumatized after the entire journey, and it does not want to come out of the shed in Bombay until situations situations revert to normalcy. So, the train has reached Amritsar, or it is translated in Hindi also as We Have Arrived in Amritsar by Bhisham Sahani, has a similar setting and plot, and it is inspired by the author's own experiences while traveling in train from Peshawar to Delhi on the eve of the independence. So, it tells us about how an ordinary person, the character of Babu, goes on to become a murderer from which there is no coming back. He is mocked at by a few Pathans who call him an effeminate person just because he does not eat meat, and he takes, because he cannot squarely face, he cannot face or fight against a group of men. He separately takes it out on a Muslim man who tries to board the train and who has nothing to do with the incident of his humiliation, the previous incident of his humiliation. We see that the Babu procures a rod from somewhere and kills this Muslim man, does not allow him to board the train. So, this is an abysmal pit. It is an abysmal pit from which people can hardly re-emerge, where people see other people only in terms of their community. They see a human as a Hindu, Muslim or a Sikh in terms of their external signifiers. In this regard, it might be helpful to also think of the external signifiers and how people played with these signifiers. So, Hindus would remove so we understand religion is a superficial, it's superficially worn on our body through skull caps, through tilak and through turbans, and people would shave so the Sikhs would have to shave and take off their turbans, so they are not identified with their community or as member of a community, and so forth for Muslims and Hindus. And so we see how I mean in Shauna Singh Baldwin's What the Body Remembers, there is the character of Roop, a Sikh girl who is able to escape by showing an Urdu tattoo, a Persian tattoo on her hand, and the Muslims take her to be someone from within the community, and so they let her go. So towards the end of the film, towards the end of Deepa Mehta's film, Earth, that is based on Bapsi Sidhwa's Cracking India, we see that the Christian gardener is forced to untie his pajama and display his circumcision. I am sorry, display his circumcision. So he has to display his circumcision in order to convince the mob that he has indeed become a Muslim. He has converted into a Muslim. So such was the case, and in one of the recent movies, a relatively modern work by Mani Ratnam, the film called Bombay, we see that the children acquired this consciousness about how these external signifiers are glib, and they can actually catch the attention of the wrong people. So there is a point where the grandchild removes the tilak from his grandfather's forehead, so that he is not attacked, he is not identified as a Hindu and attacked by the Muslim mob. So we see all these things, and finally in this discussion I would just before I once again go back to the topic of train, because I am talking about the physical markers, the markers on the body that represent one's community and belonging to one's sense of belonging to one's community or subscription to a community. We might think of Manto's story, where a Jewish woman is trying to save her Sikh lover, Mosel. So the Jewish the Jew woman who has a Sikh lover wants to save his his counterpart, a Punjabi woman, a Sikh woman, and so in the end she is a symbol of belonging nowhere, to no community. She is a woman that has no connection with any man or with any religion. She is the real free individual. She is a free individual in the true sense, and she mocks the cloth, the turban cloth of her lover, saying that he is a hypocrite, and she undresses herself to cover up his sick wife, something like this. So coming back to the topic of train, the metaphor of train, in Bengal the rare occurrences of train violence were limited to the August 1946 riots. So in Bengal we do not see much instances of riots centering trains. General Francis Tucker, who was the head of the Eastern Command in Calcutta, describes the province's only railway riot as follows. So local train carrying largely Hindu babus, the clerks, which had halted near entirely on a regular basis for the driver to throw out a present of coal for his village, was assaulted by Muslims at this spot, and one Hindu was slain. The next day 11 Muslim passengers were slain when train was stopped by Hindus. As a result, the Bengal partition stories mostly associate emigration journeys in terms of agony and misery rather than physical violence and bloodshed. So Bengal sees the minorities' predicament in terms of the fleeing persecution at the hands of the majority group, and so the Bengalis' experiences are more they are better understood as heartbreaking, as heart rendering, although bloodshed is comparatively less. These refugees are mentally and physically broken after fleeing impending death, and suddenly, just about escaping with their honor and some property, at times no property. And the heartbreaking part is because it is due to the fact that most often the aggressor would be a neighbor, a long standing neighbor, and a long standing friend. So the question of betrayal would break one's heart forever. It would break a person. So Bengal partition stories focus on the emotive aspects, the psychological aspects of communal, rather than showing showing murders, death. So it shows the emotive and psychological fallout of communal strifes. So the Bengal train travels often represent the complex human conditions that are exhibited in a diverse group that were imprisoned for a specific period of time within a closed space. So when we talk about the Bengal train travel, the complexity of human conditions is at the heart of the discussion. How people would thrive in a space such as a railway compartment within a specific period of time. It would be overcrowded, and people from diverse group would have to coexist. Same for the case of the Shialda railway platform, where hordes of refugee would come on a daily basis. At one point of time, they would arrive and they would have to live in the station amid dismal conditions, because they had nowhere else to go. They did not know Calcutta, and these were once again the poorest sections of refugees. So in the case of Selina Hussein's novel Gayatri Sandhya, or the Pious Evening, we see the plight of the refugees in several works such as and we also see this discussion in Hassan Hafizur Rahman's short story Deaths on the Night Train, which is translated into English as Two More Deaths. A work called Mukto Shimantir Shesh Raat by Satyendra Prasad Biswas, The Last Night at the Open Border, describes the angst of the helpless male narrator. So, the narrator witnesses a woman being encountered, a Bengali Hindu woman that wants to cross the border and come to India is encountered by the Bangladeshi, by the the police in Bangladesh, and she's taken away, she's taken aside for encounter and for the search, and when she comes back, she is in such a condition that she is now unable to stand. She has been tortured so much, physically tortured so much that the woman is unable to stand after the police encounter. The man blames himself for the rest of his life, and the writing is like a form of confession that he had witnessed this entire atrocity without being able to do anything for this female survivor of rape and violence. So, then we have Ghatok's trilogy, the very famous works on Bengal, Partition, the three films Meghidhaka Tara and Subarnarekha, then we have Komal Gandhar, the three films that refer to train as a symbol of nostalgic thoughts from the past. So, in fact, in Komal Gandhar we have the train, we have a very powerful scene of the train moving on the, we have a very powerful scene of the moving train that stops dead at the tracks, and in the background we have the a kind of incantation or a collective prayer being chanted, Dohai Ali. It is a kind of chant that the fishermen community usually make before they embark on their catch, or before they start their day, so their business goes well. So it's a kind of it's a call of survival kind of, because if they have a good catch, it enables them to live, it supports their livelihood. And so Dohai Ali in Komal Gandhar is chanted in the background till the train stops dead in the tracks, and one understands that the stopping of the train demarcates, it signifies that it cannot move, the train will not move further, and it signifies demarcation of a foreign land. That is where India's border stops and Bangladesh or East Pakistan begins. So, public spaces such as trains, railway stations, hospitals, prisons, all these spaces would be infested with they would be infested by the Dalit refugees in the post-partition period, and the stagnation, that the fact that the poorer refugees had nowhere to go, also pointed to the government's failure and incompetence in rehabilitating the Dalits systematically. So, the nemesis driven subtext that populates the partition centric train journeys additionally become an epithet of stagnation, of joblessness. Teeming unemployment is the next question, and we see this very very efficiently depicted in Satyajit Ray's film, in Satyajit Ray's trilogy, especially his works Shimabadho and Jano Aranyo. So, we see that the idealist for an idealist youth, the train journey would be unconsciously pregnant with the hope of going back to the place from where he came. And yet for others the stations would become the vicarious home. In this context, it might be beneficial to remember two important works by contemporary Dalit writers, Adhir Biswas and Manoranjan Bepari. So, Adhir Biswas had come from Magura, which is in Jessore, and which went on to become part of East Pakistan. As a youth, as a teenager, when he has a tiff with his father, they are a poor people living in a slum like area in Calcutta, and he suddenly takes a train, and he does not know anything about the train's destination, and yet it is a wishful journey. He wishes that the train takes him back to his village, to Magura. So, that is one aspect of train journeys, where one wants to travel aimlessly, and they have a kind of hoping against all hopes that they would reach their homeland thereby in this way. On the other hand, we see train journeys for Manoranjan Bepari are fraught with cases of individuals throwing him out of the train, giving him some food out of pity, and then there would also be men that approached the child for molestation. So, Manoranjan Bepari actually spent a significant phase of his life in stations. He had many people that he knew in and around Jadavpur station, where he constantly lived for a certain time of his life. It also, train journey would mean for these people, train journeys were made with the hope that they would go to a better land. But in the case of Manoranjan Bepari, we see that he is disembarked many a times, and he always lands from one problematic or one difficult situation to another. So, the train fails to transport them to a meaningful destination, to a meaning and can hardly be a meaningful journey for them. It's the question of stagnation. It's a question of the vicious circle of being victimized, of being cheated, and of expectations being failed, that inform the train journeys of the Dalit refugees. Having said that, we also need to understand that for some Dalits, paradoxically they are so poor, and it is written in a humorous way by by writers like Adhir Biswas with a sense of satirical wry humor. They say that we would we would board trains without tickets, hoping that the ticket checker would throw us into the prison, and there we could get a square meal, because that was the condition of the Dalit refugees. At homes they would often have a big family and many mouths to feed, and so some of them would intentionally like to be landed, taken to the prison, so their basic upkeep is taken care of. Before concluding today's lecture, we might want to think of or we might want to remember a recent case that happened at the turn of the century in 2002, the Gujarat riots, and it had also begun with the with a violence, with a case or with an instance of violence inside the train. It had begun with the Muslims burning a train filled with Hindu worshippers, which had later on taken a very ugly shape, as we all know. So, with this I would like to stop today's discussion, and we will come back again for another lecture next day. Thank you.